In the problem, we are asked to identify the duration that after it, Muhammad will hike and lift weights again on the same day. That means we need to identify the number of days Muhammad will try to train and hike. So for example, if he hikes every 4 days, which means the next time he will hike will be 8 days and so on. So we have to find the multiples of 4. So let's start by writing the multiples of 4. So we have 4 and 8, then what else? We have 12, then we have 16, 20, 24, then we have 28, and so on. In the same exact way, we will find the multiples of 7. Why? To find the number of days he will practice and lift weight. So, to find the multiples of 7, we are going to carry out the same step by either way you want. So, I have 7, then 14, then 21, then 28, and so on. Now, after we find both multiples of both numbers, we will then be able to find the first day he will both hike and lift weights. So we're asked to find what? The LCM, or the least common multiple of 7 and 4. Now, by looking over here, what are the multiples of 7? We have 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, and so on. What about the multiples of 4? They are 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, and you continue till the end. We will notice that 28 is the first common multiple of 7 and 4. When I check over here, this is the first common multiple. So what does that mean? Muhammad will both hike and lift weights on the same day after 28 days. Now we learned how our knowledge of multiples helped us solve a real-life situation we might face. That's why we need to further practice finding the greatest common factor and the least common multiple of 2 more numbers. That's what we will do in the next activity titled Factors and Multiples in Build. But first, we are asked to find the following. We are asked to find the common factors of 8 and 12. Let's check. Okay, so we want to find common factors of 8 and 12. Let's start by writing the numbers. So what are my 2 numbers? 8 and 12. How do I find common numbers? The first number that we can think of is what? Is 1. Why? Because 1 is a common factor for all numbers. So the first number that I can think of from the common factors is the number 1. What else can I think of? The second number that is also a common factor we can think of is the number what? I'm asking myself which number I can divide by both 8 and 12 at the same time. Now, since both numbers are even, we can divide them both by, excellent, 2. So the second common factor is 2. What else can we think of? Both numbers can also be divided by 4. So 4 is another common factor. What else and how do we continue? The common factors are finite. Don't forget that, because the factors of numbers are limited. Now let's find the greatest common factor, which means the greatest common factor of the 2 numbers. So how do I continue? Let's check. Now, if I'm going to use the what? The rainbow method or the rainbow strategy of the factors of 8. What am I going to do? So if I think about 8, what are the first 2 numbers? 1 and 8. That's correct. So I'm going to draw the first part of the rainbow, 1 and 8. What else do I have? I know 2 and 4. I know 2 and 4. So this is my second part of the rainbow. Now, the factors of 12 are, let's draw another one here, the rainbow strategy for 12. So the first two factors are super easy, which are 1 and 12. What comes next? We also know that 2 and 4, but how do we do that? Now, let's check. Now, I can check the second one as 2 and 6. What else? I have 3 and 4. So these are my two what? My two rainbows for the two numbers that I have. Now, when I check the common factors of 8 and 12, which numbers are there? Let's check. Now, over here are all my factors. I can see that the greatest common factor is 4. So my greatest common factor is 4. At this point, we also want to find the least common multiple of the same numbers, 8 and 12. So, we will find the multiples of each number as always to identify the common multiples, and then we select the least common multiple. So, we will write the groups of multiples of the first number, which is 8. So, if I want to find the least common multiple, let me write it over here. What are the multiples of 8? This is so easy. So, the multiples of 8 are, I have 8, then I have 16, then I have 24, and then 32, and then what comes next? 40, and then 48, and so on. Now, what about the multiples of 12? Can I list the multiples of 12? Of course. What are they? They are, we start with 12, then we continue to 24, then 36, then 48, and so on. Now, if we look at these two groups of multiples, what do we notice? We will notice that all of them are even numbers. Why? This is very important because actually 8 and 12 are even numbers. So that's why their multiples are also even. And we can find an infinite number of common multiples, as we know. Why? Because the multiples of the numbers are unlimited. What else do we notice? We will notice that we have two common multiples. What are these two common multiples? We have 24 and we have 48. But if we're asked to find two multiples like we did before, or like we were asked before, we can't think of many multiples. In this case, I only want to find the least common multiple. So it's the first common multiple that I see, which is, yes, I hear you, correct. So it is 24. So this means that the least common multiple is 24.
تقدر تتابع كل دروسك على تطبيق مدرستنا بلس. مدرستنا، المستقبل يبدأ الآن.